Everett, please. I'm begging you, just listen to me, though.
Lucinda, listening ended the moment you walked into that hotel.
The empty hangers in Lucinda's closet stared back at me like broken teeth in a skull's grin. Midnight had come and gone, and my wife of 7 years had officially been missing from our Maine home for exactly 1 week. Not missing in the call the police sense, missing in the I'm deliberately ignoring my husband while posting Instagram stories about artisanal coffee sense. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Everett Callahan, and I'm a 39-year-old investigative journalist who's made a career out of sniffing out lies. The irony that I couldn't see the ones festering in my own marriage wasn't lost on me. The phone buzzed against the cluttered desk in my home office. Another text from Lucinda. Stop bothering me. I need space to think. Space to think. Right. Because thinking requires designer handbags, apparently half her wardrobe, and radio silence toward the man who'd been sharing her bed for nearly a decade. I scrolled through her social media with the dedication of a forensic accountant. There she was, beaming at some rooftop bar downtown, cocktail in hand, wearing jewelry I'd never seen before. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to lose yourself to find yourself." New beginnings. Just living my truth. Living her truth. In our gentrifying little Maine city, that phrase usually meant someone was about to screw over someone else while feeling spiritually enlightened about it. My neighbor, Mrs. Redden's porch light flickered on across the street. Even at this ungodly hour, the old bat was probably peering through her curtains, cataloging my wife's absence like she was documenting evidence for some neighborhood tribunal. I'd met Lucinda 8 years ago when she was climbing the ranks at Coastal Style, a glossy lifestyle magazine that catered to wealthy tourists and locals who pretended they were wealthy tourists. She was the ambitious fashion editor with sharp wit and sharper ambition. I was the scrappy journalist who thought he'd found his intellectual equal. Now she was the magazine's senior editor, commanding a salary that dwarfed my freelance income, and I was the husband she apparently needed space from. The boxing bag in our basement called to me. I'd started hitting it again 3 nights ago when the silence in the house became deafening. My old coach Patty always said the bag never lies to you. It gives back exactly what you put into it. Unlike wives, apparently. I was lacing up my boxing gloves when my phone rang. Sam Chen, my tech-savvy friend who occasionally helped with research for my articles, sounded wide awake despite the late hour. "Everett, you still up? I've got something you need to see." "Unless it's my wife's location, I'm not interested." "Actually, it might be. Remember you asked me to keep an eye on public camera feeds downtown? Well, I found something interesting from 3 hours ago." My pulse quickened. "What kind of interesting?" "The kind where your wife walks into the Riverside Boutique Hotel with a man who definitely isn't you. Want me to send you the footage?" The Riverside was the kind of place where married people went to do things they couldn't do at home. Discreet, expensive, and conveniently located away from the main drag where locals might spot familiar faces. "Send it." The video arrived 30 seconds later. There was Lucinda, laughing as she walked through the hotel's elegant entrance with a tall, well-dressed man I didn't recognize. He had his hand on the small of her back in a way that spoke of familiarity, intimacy, ownership. My hands were shaking as I forwarded the video to Lucinda with a simple message. "Hope you're enjoying your space. So is your new friend." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally. "We need to talk." I smiled grimly at my phone. Now we need to talk. Funny how that works. But I was already grabbing my car keys. 7 years of marriage had taught me that when Lucinda said, "we need to talk," what she really meant was, I need to control the narrative before you figure out what's really going on. The problem for her was that I'd already figured out more than she knew. The Riverside Hotel's parking lot was nearly empty at 1 a.m. Lucinda's silver BMW sat under a streetlight like evidence at a crime scene. I parked 3 spaces away and waited. She emerged from the hotel 20 minutes later, alone, her designer heels clicking against the asphalt with the sharp precision of a countdown timer. Even disheveled, even caught red-handed, she moved with the confidence of someone who believed she could talk her way out of anything. She slid into my passenger seat without invitation, bringing with her the scent of expensive perfume and someone else's cologne. "Before you say anything," she began, her voice carrying that practiced calm she used during magazine staff meetings, "this isn't what you think." "Really?" "Because what I think is that my wife has been lying to me for at least a week while screwing some guy at a hotel 20 minutes from our house. Please enlighten me about what it actually is." She turned in her seat to face me, and I caught a glimpse of the woman I'd fallen in love with. The sharp intelligence, the calculating gaze that could dissect a problem from 6 angles before most people recognized there was a problem at all. His name is Vincent Harrington. He's a public relations consultant, and yes, we've been involved. But it's not some sordid affair, Everett. It's complicated. Complicated. I let the word hang between us like smoke. That's what we're calling adultery now? Our marriage has been over for 2 years, and you know it. We're roommates who occasionally have an affair and split the mortgage. When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you looked at me like I was something more than a fixture in your life? The accusation stung because it carried enough truth to hurt. We had grown distant. We had fallen into routines that felt more like business partnerships than romance. But I'd assumed that was normal, the natural evolution of a long-term relationship. So your solution was to disappear for a week and let me think you might be lifeless in a ditch somewhere? I needed time to figure out what I wanted. Vincent has been helping me think through my options. Your options? I repeated the phrase slowly, tasting its implications. And what exactly are those options, Lucinda? She looked out the windshield, avoiding my eyes. I want a divorce, Everett. I want to start over. The words should have devastated me. Instead, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with something darker, a cold anger that settled in my chest like ice forming on a pond. Fine, I said quietly. But let's be clear about something. You don't get to rewrite history to make yourself the victim here. You don't get to pretend our marriage was some prison you had to escape from. You made choices, Lucinda. Own them. She reached for the door handle. I'll come by tomorrow to get more of my things. We can discuss the details then. Actually, let's discuss one detail right now. Does Vincent know you're still legally married? Her hesitation was answer enough. Interesting. Does his wife know about you? This time she turned sharply. How did you? I'm an investigative journalist, remember? It took me about 10 minutes to figure out who Vincent Harrington is. Married 15 years, 2 kids, owns a boutique PR firm that represents half the city council. I'm guessing his wife Sarah doesn't know about his extracurricular activities. Lucinda's composure cracked slightly. You don't understand the situation. I understand it perfectly. You're having an affair with a married man who's probably feeding you lines about leaving his wife while he enjoys the best of both worlds. The question is, what happens when his world comes crashing down? I started the engine. Get out, Lucinda. Walk back to your boyfriend's hotel room and figure out your next move. But understand this. I'm not going to make this easy for you. You want a divorce? Fine. But you're not going to destroy our marriage and then skip off into the sunset without consequences. She climbed out of the car but leaned down to the open window. Don't do anything stupid, Everett. You don't want to make an enemy of me. I laughed. Actually laughed at the threat. Sweetheart, I've been married to you for 7 years. I know exactly how dangerous you can be. The question is whether you know how dangerous I can be. As I drove away, I caught sight of her in my rearview mirror, standing alone under the streetlight, her phone already pressed to her ear. Probably calling Vincent. Probably spinning the encounter to make me look like the unreasonable one. But I had something she didn't know about. A week's worth of pent-up rage and the professional skills to channel it productively. By the time I got home, I'd already started planning my next move. The next morning brought the kind of gray, drizzling Maine weather that matched my mood perfectly. I sat in my home office, surrounded by the tools of my trade, notebooks, recording equipment, and a laptop that had helped me expose 3 city council corruption scandals in the past 5 years. Now I was turning those same investigative skills on my own life. Vincent Harrington had been easier to research than most of my professional subjects. His PR firm, Harrington Communications, represented local politicians, high-end restaurants, and several nonprofit organizations that threw elaborate fundraising galas. His social media presence was carefully curated. Family photos, professional achievements, and the kind of inspirational quotes that made me want to throw my laptop across the room. But social media always tells a story if you know how to read it. Vincent's posts had become less frequent over the past 2 months. The family photos looked increasingly staged. His wife Sarah's smile seemed forced in recent pictures. And she'd stopped commenting on his posts entirely 3 weeks ago, a marriage in trouble, perfect hunting ground for someone like Lucinda. I was deep into mapping Vincent's professional connections when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw 2 familiar faces that made my stomach drop. Jake Morrison and Tom Bradley, 2 guys I'd considered close friends until about 6 months ago. I opened the door to find them standing on my porch with the uncomfortable expressions of men who'd drawn the short straws for an unpleasant task. Everett, Jake said, his voice carrying the forced casualness of someone delivering bad news. We need to talk. Let me guess. Lucinda called you. Tom shifted uncomfortably. She's worried about you, man. Says you've been acting erratic, following her around, making threats. I laughed bitterly. Following her around? I caught her cheating and confronted her about it. Since when is that erratic behavior? Look, Jake said, stepping closer. We've all been through rough patches in our marriages, but stalking your wife isn't the answer. You need to back off and let her have some space. Space. There was that word again. Did she mention that the space she needs includes another man's bed? The two men exchanged glances. Tom cleared his throat. That's between you and Lucinda. What we're concerned about is your reaction. She says you threatened her and her friend. Friend, I shook my head. Is that what we're calling married men who screw other people's wives now? Jesus, Everett, Jake snapped, his patience clearly exhausted. Listen to yourself. You sound paranoid, obsessed. This isn't healthy. You know what's not healthy? Having your friends show up at your door to defend your cheating wife without even asking for your side of the story. How long have you guys known about Vincent? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. Unbelievable, I muttered. You've known all along. Tom had the grace to look ashamed. It's not our place to get involved in your marriage. But it is your place to come here and tell me I'm the problem? We're trying to help, Jake insisted. Lucinda says you've been drinking heavily, staying up all night, talking about revenge. That's not the Everett we know. The Everett you know was a fool who trusted his wife and his friends. Consider this my evolution. I started to close the door, but Jake put his hand against it. Don't do anything stupid, man. Whatever you're planning, it's not worth it. Planning? I smiled coldly. I'm not planning anything. I'm just a journalist who's very good at uncovering the truth. And right now, the truth is that my wife is a liar, her boyfriend is a fraud, and my friends are cowards who choose sides based on whoever calls them first. Everett, get off my property, both of you, and tell Lucinda that if she's worried about my behavior, she should probably worry more about her own. I slammed the door and watched through the window as they walked back to Jake's car, their heads bent together in urgent conversation. No doubt they'd report back to Lucinda that I was, indeed, acting erratic. Good. Let them think I was falling apart. Let them believe their little intervention had rattled me. The truth was, I'd never felt more focused in my life. I returned to my computer and opened a new document. At the top, I typed, The Vincent Harrington Story, a case study in public relations disasters. If Lucinda wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real professional could do. 3 days of digging had yielded a treasure trove of information about Vincent Harrington's carefully constructed public image and the cracks that were starting to show. His PR firm was hemorrhaging clients. 2 major accounts had dropped him in the past month, citing philosophical differences and shifting priorities. Translation, someone was whispering poison in the right ears, and Vincent's reputation was taking hits he couldn't afford. More interesting was what I'd discovered about his marriage. Sarah Harrington had filed for legal separation 6 weeks ago, right around the time Lucinda had started acting distant and secretive. The timing wasn't coincidental, but the real revelation came from an unexpected source, Imogen Walsh, Lucinda's best friend and the creative director at Coastal Style. I'd always found Imogen slightly unsettling, too eager to please, too quick with compliments that felt calculated rather than genuine. She was the kind of person who collected secrets like some people collected stamps, always filing away information for potential future use. She called me Wednesday afternoon, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Everett, darling, I just heard about you and Lucinda. I'm absolutely devastated. How are you holding up? I'm managing, Imogen. Thanks for asking. I feel terrible about this whole situation. I tried to talk sense into her, but you know how stubborn she can be when she gets an idea in her head. What kind of idea? A pause. Too long, too calculated. Oh, you know, just this whole notion that she needs to find herself or whatever. Honestly, I think she's having some sort of midlife crisis. The affair with Vincent is just a symptom of deeper issues. So you knew about Vincent? Well, yes, but I hoped it would burn itself out. These things usually do. Vincent's not exactly the most reliable man, if you know what I mean. I did know what she meant, and it gave me an idea. Imogen, can I ask you something? Off the record, just between friends? Of course, darling. How long has Vincent been feeding Lucinda lines about leaving his wife? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like he's been stringing her along while his marriage falls apart for completely different reasons. Another pause. This one felt different. Surprised, almost impressed. You've been doing your homework, she said finally. It's what I do. The question is, does Lucinda know that Vincent's been playing the same game with at least 2 other women in the past year? 2 other. How did you find out about them? Bingo. Imogen knew more than she was letting on. A lot more. Like I said, it's what I do. But here's what I can't figure out, Imogen. You're supposed to be Lucinda's best friend. Why haven't you warned her that she's about to become the 3rd woman Vincent discards when his divorce gets messy? It's complicated, Everett. There are things you don't understand about the situation. Then help me understand. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been enabling this affair while knowing it was going to end badly for everyone involved. That doesn't sound like something a best friend would do. The line went quiet for so long, I thought she'd hung up. Meet me tonight, she said finally. Riverside Park, by the old gazebo, 9 o'clock. Come alone, and don't tell anyone about this conversation. Why all the cloak and dagger stuff? Because there are things about this situation that go deeper than just a simple affair. If you want the whole truth about what's been happening to your marriage, you'll be there. She hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone, my journalist instinct screaming that I was being manipulated. But my desire for answers was stronger than my caution. At 8:30, I drove to Riverside Park. Riverside Park at night was the kind of place where bad decisions went to breed. The old Victorian gazebo sat at the center of a circle of ancient oak trees, their branches creating shadows that moved like living things in the wind off the river. Imogen was already there when I arrived, sitting on one of the gazebo's benches like she was posing for a Gothic novel. She'd traded her usual designer outfits for dark jeans and a black jacket that made her blend into the shadows. You came, she said as I approached. I wasn't sure you would. I'm here for answers, Imogen. Start talking. She gestured to the bench across from her. Sit down, Everett. This is going to take a while. I remained standing. I'm fine where I am. Suit yourself. She crossed her legs and studied me with an expression I couldn't quite read. How much do you really know about your wife's career trajectory over the past 2 years? What does that have to do with anything? Everything. Lucinda didn't just stumble into that senior editor position, Everett. She earned it by being very, very good at destroying her competition. Meaning? Meaning she's been systematically undermining colleagues, stealing story ideas, and manipulating office politics to climb the corporate ladder. The affair with Vincent isn't just about romance, it's about business. Vincent's firm represents 3 of our biggest advertisers. Lucinda's been using pillow talk to get insider information about their marketing strategies. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. You're saying she's been committing corporate espionage. I'm saying your wife is much more ambitious and much less ethical than you realized. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Why are you telling me this? Imogen smiled, and for the first time since I'd known her, it looked genuine. Because I'm tired of being her accomplice. Do you know what my job has been for the past year, Everett? Cleaning up Lucinda's messes. Covering for her when she disappears for meetings with Vincent. Lying to our boss about why certain story leads never pan out. Watching her take credit for work that other people did. So expose her yourself. With what proof? Lucinda's too smart to leave obvious fingerprints. But you're an investigative journalist with a personal stake in bringing her down. You have resources I don't have, and more importantly, you have motivation. I studied her face in the dim light filtering through the gazebo's latticed roof. What's in it for you? When Lucinda falls, someone needs to take her place. I've been the creative director for 3 years, watching less qualified people get promoted over me because they were better at playing politics. It's my turn? So you want me to destroy my wife's career so you can steal her job? I want you to expose the truth about what she's been doing. If that destroys her career, well, actions have consequences. I walked to the gazebo's railing and looked out at the dark river. The water moved silently past, carrying debris and secrets toward the ocean. What kind of proof are we talking about? Email chains between Lucinda and Vincent discussing confidential advertiser information. Photos of documents she's photographed from colleagues' desks. Audio recordings of phone calls where she's clearly violating professional ethics. How did you get all this? I've been documenting everything for months, waiting for the right moment to use it. Consider this the right moment. I turned back to face her. And if I refuse to help you, then Lucinda continues destroying people's careers and reputations while you sit at home feeling sorry for yourself. She wins, Vincent wins, and everyone they've stepped on loses. Including you. Including me. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves above us and carrying the scent of rain from the approaching storm clouds. In the distance, I could hear the sound of traffic on the main road, people going about their normal lives while mine fell apart in a gazebo by a river. I need to see the evidence first, I said finally. Imogen reached into her jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. Everything's in there. Email printouts, photocopies, USB drive with audio files, enough to bury her professionally and personally. I took the envelope, feeling its weight in my hands. Why now, Imogen? Why not 6 months ago, or 6 months from now? Because Vincent's about to throw her under the bus. His divorce is getting ugly, and his wife's lawyer is asking questions about his extramarital activities. He's going to sacrifice Lucinda to protect himself, and she's too infatuated to see it coming. So you're trying to beat him to the punch. I'm trying to make sure the right person controls the narrative when everything falls apart. Would you rather have Vincent spinning the story to protect himself, or would you rather have someone who actually cares about the truth handling it? I looked down at the envelope in my hands. Inside was enough ammunition to destroy my wife's career, her reputation, and probably her relationship with Vincent. It was everything I'd wanted when I started digging into their affair. So why did I feel like I was making a deal with the devil? I need time to think about this. Time is the one thing we don't have, Everett. Vincent's meeting with his lawyers tomorrow morning. If we're going to act, it has to be soon. How soon? Tomorrow night. There's a charity gala at the Riverside Hotel, the same hotel where you caught Lucinda with Vincent. Half the city's power brokers will be there, including Lucinda's boss and most of the magazine's major advertisers. It's the perfect venue for maximum exposure. You want me to publicly humiliate my wife at a charity event. I want you to publicly expose a fraud at a charity event. The humiliation is just a side effect. I tucked the envelope inside my jacket. I'll let you know. Don't take too long to decide, Everett. Tomorrow night is our only shot at controlling this story. After that, we're all just victims of whatever Vincent decides to do. She stood up and walked past me toward the park's exit. And Everett, when this is over, remember that I gave you the chance to be the hero instead of the victim. That should count for something. I watched her disappear into the shadows between the trees, leaving me alone with the envelope and a decision that would change everything. The Riverside Hotel's ballroom glittered like a jewelry store window, all crystal chandeliers and gold-trimmed mirrors reflecting the city's elite in their finest attire. The charity gala was in full swing, with couples dancing to a string quartet, while others clustered around silent auction displays featuring weekend getaways and spa packages. I stood near the bar, nursing a whiskey and watching Lucinda work the room like the professional she was. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment, her hair swept up to show off diamond earrings I'd never seen before. Vincent's gifts, no doubt. Speaking of Vincent, he was holding court near the silent auction, regaling a group of potential clients with what I assumed were carefully crafted lies about his professional successes. His wife Sarah was notably absent, not surprising, given that their separation was now a matter of public record. The envelope Imogen had given me sat in my jacket pocket like a loaded weapon. I'd spent the day reviewing its contents, and she hadn't exaggerated. The evidence was damning. Emails between Lucinda and Vincent discussing confidential advertiser strategies, photos of documents she'd clearly stolen from colleagues' desks, and audio recordings that would end her career the moment they became public. But something about the whole situation still felt wrong. Imogen's motivations were too clean, too convenient. In my experience, people rarely did the right thing for purely altruistic reasons. Everett Callahan, as I live and breathe. I turned to find Margaret Thorne, Lucinda's boss and the publisher of Coastal Style, approaching with a martini in one hand and a predatory smile on her face. Margaret was the kind of woman who'd clawed her way to the top of the publishing world by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone around her. Margaret, lovely event. Isn't it? Though I have to say, I'm surprised to see you here. Lucinda mentioned you two were having some difficulties. Did she? How thoughtful of her to share our personal business with her employer. Margaret's smile sharpened. Oh, don't be so sensitive, darling. We're all adults here. These things happen. The question is whether you're planning to handle it like an adult or make a scene that embarrasses everyone involved. What kind of scene would that be? The kind where a bitter husband tries to sabotage his successful wife's career out of spite. It's such a cliché, don't you think? I took a sip of my whiskey, letting the burn focus my thoughts. Margaret, can I ask you something? How well do you really know Lucinda's work methods? What do you mean? Have you ever wondered how she always seems to be one step ahead of the competition? How she manages to anticipate market trends and advertiser needs with such uncanny accuracy? Margaret's expression shifted slightly, the predatory smile fading into something more cautious. Lucinda is an exceptional editor with excellent instincts. Exceptional enough to photograph confidential documents from her colleagues' desks. Exceptional enough to trade favors for insider information from advertiser representatives. That's a very serious accusation, Everett. I hope you have proof to back it up. I patted my jacket pocket. As a matter of fact, I do. Before Margaret could respond, the lights dimmed and a spotlight illuminated the small stage at the front of the ballroom. The evening's host, a local television personality, stepped up to the microphone to begin the night's program of speeches and acknowledgments. But I wasn't interested in speeches. I was watching Lucinda, who had moved closer to Vincent during the lighting change. They weren't touching, but their body language spoke of intimacy, shared secrets, mutual attraction. They looked like a couple who believed they'd successfully destroyed one marriage and were well on their way to destroying another. The host was introducing the evening's first speaker when I made my decision. I walked toward the stage, my footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet of the ballroom. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough for my voice to carry over the microphone. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have something important to share with everyone here tonight." A murmur rippled through the crowd. I could see Lucinda's face in the crowd, her expression shifting from confusion to alarm as she realized what was happening. The host looked flustered. "Sir, this is a private event. If you have something to discuss, perhaps—" "What I have to discuss concerns several people in this room, including some of your major advertisers and sponsors. I think they'd want to hear it." I pulled the envelope from my jacket and held it up. "My name is Everett Callahan, and I'm an investigative journalist. Over the past week, I've been looking into some troubling allegations about corporate espionage and professional misconduct involving Coastal Style magazine." The murmur grew louder. I could see Margaret Thorne pushing through the crowd, her face flushed with anger. Vincent had gone pale, his earlier confidence evaporating like smoke. "The evidence I have here," I continued, "shows a systematic pattern of stolen confidential information, manipulated business relationships, and ethical violations that have affected multiple companies represented in this room tonight." "Security!" Margaret shouted. "Get this man out of here." But the crowd was listening now, their attention focused on me and the envelope in my hands. In a room full of business people and politicians, the promise of scandal was more compelling than any charity appeal. "The person responsible," I said, raising my voice as two security guards approached the stage, "has been using personal relationships to gain access to confidential advertiser information, then using that information to manipulate business deals and destroy competitors." The security guards reached the stage, but before they could grab me, I threw the envelope into the crowd. Papers scattered like confetti, floating down onto the upturned faces of the city's elite. "The evidence is all there," I called out as the guards grabbed my arms. "Emails, photos, audio recordings, everything you need to know about how Coastal Style really does business." As they dragged me toward the exit, I caught sight of Lucinda's face in the crowd. She looked like someone who just watched her entire world collapse in real time, which I supposed she had. The last thing I saw before the security guards pushed me out of the ballroom was Vincent, frantically gathering up the scattered papers while Margaret Thorne screamed at him to leave them alone. By tomorrow morning, everyone in the city would know exactly what kind of people they really were, and I would finally have my revenge. The aftermath of the gala unfolded exactly as I'd hoped it would, but faster than I'd expected. By 10 the next morning, my phone was buzzing with calls from reporters, lawyers, and former friends who suddenly wanted to hear my side of the story. I ignored most of them and focused on the news coverage. The local television station led with the story, "Magazine executive accused of corporate espionage." The newspaper's headline was more direct. "Coastal Style editor caught in scandal." But the real damage was happening online, where social media had turned the scattered papers from the gala into a viral sensation. Someone had photographed several of the documents, and the images were spreading faster than wildfire. Brecht's Coastal Style scandal was trending locally, and several national media outlets had picked up the story. Lucinda's carefully constructed professional image was crumbling in real time. My doorbell rang at 11:30. I opened it to find Vincent Harrington standing on my porch, looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled, and his eyes had the desperate look of someone watching his life fall apart. "We need to talk," he said. "I don't think we do." "Please. 5 minutes. Then I'll leave you alone forever." I considered slamming the door in his face, but curiosity won out. I stepped aside and let him enter. He walked into my living room and turned to face me with the kind of defeated posture I'd seen on politicians just before they resigned in disgrace. "You destroyed everything," he said quietly. "My business, my reputation, my relationship with my kids. Was it worth it?" "You destroyed your own life, Vincent. I just made sure everyone knew about it." "Lucinda didn't deserve this. Whatever you think of me, she was just trying to succeed in a competitive industry." I laughed bitterly. She was stealing confidential information and manipulating business relationships. That's not competition, that's fraud. You don't understand the pressure she was under. Margaret Thorne is a monster who demands results, regardless of how you get them. Lucinda was just trying to survive. By cheating on her husband and betraying her colleagues? Vincent ran his hands through his hair. The affair? That was real, Everett. Whatever else you think, what we had was real. Real enough to throw away 2 marriages and destroy multiple careers? I was going to leave Sarah anyway. The marriage has been over for years. And you and Lucinda, you were like roommates, not husband and wife. We weren't breaking up happy homes. Keep telling yourself that. He walked to my window and looked out at the street where a news van was parked. Its satellite dish extended toward the gray Maine sky. What happens now? He asked. Now you face the consequences of your choices. Both of you. The district attorney's office called this morning. They're opening an investigation into the corporate espionage allegations. Lucinda could face criminal charges. I felt a flicker of something that might have been guilt, but I pushed it down. That's not my problem. It could be. If this goes to trial, you'll be called as a witness. Your role in exposing the evidence will be scrutinized. Are you prepared for that? I'm prepared for whatever comes next. Vincent turned back to face me. I'm leaving town, Everett. My business is finished here, my reputation is shot, and my ex-wife's lawyer is circling like a shark. But before I go, I want you to know something. What's that? Lucinda really did love you, once upon a time. Whatever she became, whatever we did together, that was real too. Don't let your need for revenge erase the good memories. The good memories were erased the moment she decided to betray our marriage. He nodded sadly. I suppose they were. After he left, I sat in my living room and watched the news van through my window. The reporter was doing a live broadcast from my street, probably speculating about my motivations and the evidence I'd revealed at the gala. My phone rang. This time, it was Margaret Thorne. You snake, she said without preamble. Do you have any idea what you've done? I've exposed the truth about how your magazine operates. You've destroyed innocent people's lives for your own petty revenge. Lucinda is finished, Vincent's business is ruined, and my magazine's reputation is in tatters. I hope you're satisfied. I'm satisfied that the truth is finally out there. The truth? The truth is that you're a bitter, vindictive man who couldn't handle being cuckolded, so you decided to burn down everyone around you. The truth is that your senior editor was stealing confidential information and trading favors for business intelligence. If that ruins your magazine's reputation, maybe you should have been more careful about who you promoted. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was cold and controlled. This isn't over, Everett. You've made powerful enemies tonight, and we have long memories. Watch your back. She hung up before I could respond. I walked to my home office and sat down at my desk, looking at the chaos of papers and files I'd accumulated during my investigation. The evidence that had destroyed my wife's career and her lover's business was scattered across every surface like the debris from an explosion. My computer chimed with a new email. It was from Imogen Walsh, with the subject line, "Thank you." Everett, the message read. I wanted you to know that Margaret offered me Lucinda's position this morning. I start Monday. I also wanted to thank you for having the courage to do what needed to be done. Not everyone would have made the same choice. I hope you find some peace now that the truth is out there. Imogen. I stared at the email for a long time, thinking about courage and truth and the difference between justice and revenge. Then I deleted it and closed my laptop. Outside, the news van was packing up to leave. The story would continue to unfold over the coming days and weeks, but the explosive moment had passed. The scandal would fade into local legend, another cautionary tale about ambition and betrayal in a small city where everyone knew everyone else's business. But for me, it was over. I had exposed the truth, destroyed my enemies, and reclaimed some measure of dignity from the wreckage of my marriage. The question now was, what came next? 3 weeks after the gala, I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop downtown when Imogen Walsh walked in. She looked different, more confident, more polished, wearing the kind of expensive business attire that came with executive positions at glossy magazines. She spotted me immediately and walked over to my table with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Mind if I sit? She asked. I gestured to the empty chair across from me. Congratulations on the promotion. Thank you. It's been a challenging transition, but I think I'm settling in well. I'm sure you are. She ordered a latte from the passing waitress and studied my face with the calculating expression I'd come to recognize during our brief partnership. You don't seem happy, Everett. I thought you'd be more satisfied with how everything turned out. Should I be? You got your revenge? Lucinda's career is over. Vincent left town in disgrace, and the truth about their affair is public knowledge. Isn't that what you wanted? I took a sip of my coffee and considered her question. I thought it was, but lately I've been wondering about something. What's that? How long have you been planning this, Imogen? Her smile faltered slightly. Planning what? The whole thing. Lucinda's downfall, Vincent's destruction, your promotion to senior editor. How long have you been orchestrating this entire scenario? I don't know what you mean. I think you do. See, I've had 3 weeks to think about everything that happened, and some things don't add up. Like how you happen to have so much detailed evidence about Lucinda's activities. Like how you knew exactly when Vincent's divorce was being finalized. Like how you seemed to anticipate every move in this chess game. Imogen's composure was slipping, but she maintained her innocent expression. I told you, I was documenting Lucinda's behavior because I suspected she was doing something unethical. Or because you were helping her do it, and you kept records to protect yourself when the inevitable explosion happened. That's ridiculous. Is it? Because I did some digging after the gala, and I found some interesting connections, like the fact that you introduced Lucinda to Vincent at a magazine industry party 8 months ago. Like the fact that Vincent's PR firm had been trying to land Coastal Style as a client for over a year before Lucinda suddenly started advocating for them. Imogen's latte arrived, giving her a moment to compose herself, but when she looked back at me, I could see the calculation behind her eyes. You're very thorough, she said finally. It's what I do. The question is, how much of this affair was real, and how much was a business arrangement that got out of hand? She laughed, and for the first time since I'd known her, it sounded genuine. You really want to know? I really do. Fine, you're right about most of it. I did introduce Lucinda to Vincent, and yes, it was partly about business. Vincent needed a contact inside the magazine, and Lucinda needed an edge over her competition. The affair was supposed to be a convenient cover for their professional relationship. But it became real. Unfortunately, yes, Lucinda actually fell for the bastard, which complicated everything. Vincent was supposed to be discreet, professional, focused on the business advantages. Instead, he started making promises about leaving his wife and building a future together. It was messy and emotional and completely contrary to the plan. Your plan. My plan. I'd been documenting everything from the beginning, partly to protect the magazine if the relationship became public, and partly to protect myself if things went wrong. And when they did go wrong, I saw an opportunity. Lucinda's infatuation with Vincent was making her sloppy. She was taking bigger risks, being less careful about covering her tracks. I knew it was only a matter of time before someone noticed. So you decided to be the someone who noticed. I decided to control the narrative before it controlled me. When you started investigating the affair, I realized you could be the perfect weapon to bring down both Lucinda and Vincent while keeping my own hands clean. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. And Margaret Thorne? Was she in on it too? Margaret suspected something was going on, but she didn't know the details. She was happy to promote me when Lucinda's position became available, especially since I was the one who helped expose the scandal that could have destroyed the magazine's reputation. Instead of the one who helped create it. Exactly. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her confession settling between us like a heavy blanket. Why are you telling me this? I asked finally. Because you figured it out anyway, and because I respect what you accomplished. You took a bad situation and turned it to your advantage. That's exactly what I did. I destroyed my marriage and ruined several people's lives. You exposed corruption and held people accountable for their actions. The fact that it served your personal interests doesn't make it wrong. Doesn't it? She finished her latte and stood up. That's a question you'll have to answer for yourself, Everett. But remember, Lucinda really was stealing information, Vincent really was manipulating business relationships, and you really were betrayed by people you trusted. The fact that I helped orchestrate some of those betrayals doesn't change the fundamental truth of what happened. And what happens now? Now you move on with your life, and I move on with mine. We both got what we wanted, even if the methods were more complicated than either of us initially planned. She turned to leave, then paused and looked back at me. For what it's worth, Everett, I am sorry about your marriage. Whatever role I played in its destruction, I know you loved Lucinda once upon a time. That wasn't part of the plan. It was just collateral damage. After she left, I sat alone in the coffee shop, staring out the window at the busy street where people were going about their normal lives, unaware of the complex web of manipulation and revenge that had just been revealed to me. I thought about Lucinda, who was probably somewhere across town, dealing with the wreckage of her career and her relationship. I thought about Vincent, who had left town to start over somewhere else. I thought about the friends who had abandoned me and the enemies who had underestimated me. And I thought about myself, a man who had set out to expose the truth and ended up becoming part of an even larger deception. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from an unknown number. The divorce papers are ready for your signature. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow to arrange a meeting. L. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, fine. It was over. All of it. The marriage, the affair, the revenge, the investigation. The only question now was what came next. I finished my coffee, left money on the table, and walked out into the gray Maine afternoon. The city looked the same as it always had, but I knew I was seeing it through different eyes now. I had learned things about human nature, about ambition and betrayal and the price of revenge that I couldn't unlearn. I had won my war against Lucinda and Vincent, but in winning, I had discovered that I was just another casualty in someone else's larger game. The truth, as it turned out, was more complicated than I had ever imagined. But it was still the truth, and that had to count for something. As I walked home through the familiar streets of my small city, I realized that I was finally ready to start over. Not as the betrayed husband seeking revenge, not as the investigative journalist exposing corruption, but as someone who had learned the hard way that everyone, including himself, was capable of both great good and terrible evil. It was a sobering lesson, but it was also, in its own way, liberating. The game was over. The players had scattered. The truth had been revealed. Now it was time to figure out what came next.